Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. I have had a couple of people in the comment section of a couple of different videos that were asking me to talk more about the climate in the state of Indiana. So this video will be about that. Now, just for your information, right now I'm driving down Indiana Route 9 or State Route 67 going south, and I'm getting ready to drive through. I'm not going to do a video about the city of Pendleton. I'm just going to drive through it on this route. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be, so all I can tell you is if you stay on this route long enough, this route goes all the way from this route, at this point, if I stay on it, I can take this route all the way into Indianapolis. But anyhow, this video is going to be about the climate in the state of Indiana, so I'm going to get to the topic. Basically, here in Indiana, we do get all 4 seasons. We get spring, summer, fall, and winter. We get all 4 seasons. Now, I would say that depending on what part of Indiana you reside on, the climate will be, it's not going to be that much different in the climate. The difference will be minimal. Like, if you decide to move on the north side of Indiana, typically you're going to experience a slightly colder, the temperatures are going to be a little colder. And in the winter, the temperatures in the winter will be colder, and typically you'll get a little bit more snow, because for one, you're going to be further up north, and for two, many of your northern Indiana areas are going to also be closer to the lake. So if you're like real close to the lake, like if you're living in, let's say, Michigan City or Fort Wayne or South Bend, you'll probably experience a little bit of lake effect snow and lake effect wind chill factors, which will make the weather feel colder than what it really is. If you live in the middle of Indiana, it's going to still get very cold. You're going to still get snow, except you're not going to get quite as much snow, because for one, you're a little further south, and for two, you're not going to be as close to the lake. Now, if you live in southern Indiana during the colder months, typically in southern Indiana, you're going to get a little less snow, because they're further down south. And as far as your temperature goes, it's gonna still be rather cold. Maybe it might be in upwards of 5 degrees warmer in southern Indiana as compared to mid-Indiana. It might be in upwards of 10 degrees warmer in southern Indiana compared to northern Indiana. But I would say throughout the state of Indiana, when it comes to your temperature, the temperatures typically don't fluctuate from one side of the state to the other. The fluctuation typically is within 10 degrees. Now, come your warmer months / your summer months, I would say temperature-wise, like I just got done telling you, the temperatures are not going to fluctuate by that much. So I would say basically in the late spring through the summer and into the earlier half of fall, your weather across the entire state of Indiana is going to basically be the same. Now, late fall into early winter, for the most part, once again, the weather is going to pretty much be the same. Now, into your winter months, like I was telling you earlier, temperature-wise, there's not going to be a huge difference. However, if you're living by the lake or close to the lake in northern Indiana, you will experience that wind chill factor coming off the lake, which means in northern Indiana, typically it's going to be a few degrees colder and you're going to get a little bit more snow. But I would say, and like I said, if you're in mid-Indiana, it's going to still be cold, but a little less snow. In southern Indiana, even less snow, but it's still going to be rather cold. So if you're coming from a warmer climate where your winters are milder and shorter lived and you get next to no snow, like if you're coming from, let's say, California, or you're coming from the deep south somewhere, and you're even coming from Tennessee, and you're wanting to move somewhere in Indiana, my best advice is, if you don't already have a snow shovel, go ahead and go buy you one. If you don't already have a snow blower, you might want to buy one of those, because during the winter time, at some point, you will have to go outside and clean your driveway and your sidewalk, because the snow here in Indiana, at some point, will accumulate. And obviously, if you don't already have some warm clothes to wear, hat, gloves, a winter coat, some boots, if you're wanting to live in Indiana, go right ahead and buy all that stuff. Because here in Indiana, our winters get rather cold. Even our late falls and early springs are going to be rather cold. So go ahead and buy all that. Now, typically, during the colder months of the year, I would say the colder months of the year are going to be from mid-October to mid-April. Those are going to be the coldest months of the year. I would say for those of you that are not crazy about colder weather and you're not crazy about snow, there's going to be a good 4 months, give or take, out of the year that you're going to probably dislike Indiana. And you're going to wish you wouldn't have never moved here in the first place. But as long as you survive those 4 months, the rest of the year in Indiana is not that bad. I mean, climate-wise, it's not that bad. I mean, you know, springtime's not too bad. Fall time, in my opinion, is not bad. Now, come to summertime, it does get hot. And yes, we do have humidity. And if you're living in the northern part of the state, close to the lake, you will have slightly more humidity than you will in mid or southern Indiana. Because once again, you'll have the humidity coming off the lake. And if you're living by or close to the lake in northern Indiana, your mosquitoes will be a little bigger, and typically there'll be more mosquitoes because of the lake. Now, as far as the temperatures are concerned, the fluctuation of temperature, the fluctuation is going to most likely be within 5 degrees. Every so often it might be as high as 10 degrees fluctuation, but for the most part the fluctuation is going to be within 5 degrees. Like if it's 85 degrees in Gary, it might be not much higher than 90 in, let's say, Clarksville, Indiana. Now the humidity in Indiana, as long, you know, just like the humidity in many parts of the Midwest, it's not going to be as intense as the humidity that you experience in the South. So, you know, if you're coming from, let's say, Tennessee or the Carolinas, and you're moving to Indiana, you will notice a significant difference in the humidity factor. The humidity factor in Indiana is much less intense compared to what you'll experience in, let's say, even Tennessee or the Carolinas. Now, if you're coming from, of course, the deep South, then you're going to definitely notice a significant difference in the humidity factor in Indiana compared to where you came from if you're somewhere in the South. Now, if you're coming from the West Coast, or you're coming from further up north, where the humidity might be a little lower, then obviously moving to Indiana, you're going to have to adjust to higher humidity levels. Like in a minute here, I'm getting ready to drive into Fortsville, Indiana. Now, I did a video about Fortsville a while back ago. It's somewhere on my channel, so go check that out. But anyways, back to the topic. So yeah, if you move to Indiana, you know, go ahead, buy that snow shovel, buy that winter coat, buy those boots, buy that snow blower. And when it comes to purchasing a home in Indiana, make sure you got central heat. Preferably, you're going to want your heat source to be gas, because gas heat tends to heat more efficiently than electric heat. Now, if you're currently living in the South, or you're living somewhere out west where winters are typically a little bit more milder, then you may have been able to get away with electric heat. But here in Indiana, like I told you a minute ago, our winters do get rather cold. So when it comes, if you're coming here and you're going to purchase yourself a home, make sure your home comes with central heat. I can't emphasize that enough. Preferably, you're going to want that central heat source to be natural gas. And now for the summertime, I mean, although it does get hot and you do got humidity here, I mean, depending on your tolerance of warmer temps and humidity, I mean, there's a lot of people that are here in Indiana that do not have central air. They just got maybe 1 or 2 or 3 window units, and whatever room you're gonna go into, you just cut on that unit, and then when you leave that room and go to another room, you cut off that unit and you turn on another one. So, in my humble opinion, I would say, if you're gonna move to Indiana, period, you might be able to get away with having a window unit or units for your air source. Now, obviously, if you got central air, that's going to be a little more efficient, and you're going to be a little bit more comfortable. But if you just got like a window unit in your house and you're living here in Indiana, or you're going to be moving to Indiana, you should be okay. Now back to wintertime in Indiana. Now, like I said, our winter times do get rather cold. I would say on average, during your colder months of the year, your lows are going to be anywhere as low as the negatives up into I would say during the winter time, your temperatures can go anywhere from the lows being in the teens all the way as low as the negatives. I would say that's going to describe your average lows during the winter. Now, your average highs during the winter time in Indiana, I would say your highs are going to typically be anywhere from in the upper teens to the low 30s. Now, every so often during the winter months, you'll have a few warm days where it might get into the 40s. And, you know, every so often in February and in March, you might even get a couple of days where the temperatures are in the 50s. But for the most part, during the winter months, your temperatures are gonna, your highs are gonna be anywhere from the upper teens into the low 30s for your highs during the winter. And your lows are gonna be anywhere from the 20s all the way down into the negatives. Now, on occasion, and this has been going on for the last few years. Now, here in Indiana, we have been having Arctic spells. I mean, an Arctic wave spell, whatever the hell you want to call it. But here in Indiana, and typically this is going to happen at least 1 week during the winter season. And typically, I mean, it could happen in January, it could happen in February, it could happen in late February, early March. But typically, for at least anywhere from a few days to a week out of the winter season, there's gonna be an Arctic wave, to where your lows are gonna be in the negatives, and even your highs during the day will still be in the negatives. Like, your lows might be, like, for an example, your low might be negative 20. Your highs during the day might be negative 14. Now, back in 2018, if I recall right, there were several days where the temperature high during the day was negative 14. And that was with the sun out, in the middle of the day, everything. So like I said, I can't emphasize enough that in Indiana, we do get winter weather. It does snow. The snow will accumulate at some point. And yes, the temperatures do get rather cold. I mean, granted, here in Indiana, we're not going to get as cold as, let's say, Minnesota or the Dakotas, or even as cold as Wisconsin, but we do get pretty cold here during the winter. Now, I would say our springtimers aren't too bad. I mean, our springtimes aren't too bad. I mean, yeah, they are a bit on the wet side, and the weather during the spring is very unpredictable. I mean, one day it can be sunny and 75 degrees, the next day it could be 30 degrees and snowing. And I literally mean the next day. And during our fall season, you know, once again, the weather can be pretty unpredictable. I mean, one day it can be in the 70s and sunny. Next day it can be windy, raining, and in the 40s. Now, for those of you that like the view of different color leaves falling off the tree during the fall, here in Indiana, that typically will begin to happen in, I would say, between the third week of October to early November is when you'll start to see the leaves fall, is when you'll start to see the leaves turn color and fall off the tree. But yeah, whether you move to the north end of Indiana, or you move to the south end of Indiana, or you move to the middle part of the state, your temperatures are not going to fluctuate by much. Your climate's not going to be a whole lot different. It's just that in the north end, you'll get a little bit more snow than you get in the rest of the state. On the south end, you'll get a little less snow than the rest of the state. That's about the only major difference that there's going to be. So yeah, if you move to Indiana, you know, it's typical Midwestern weather. And I think if you move to Indiana, I mean, I think after your first year of being in Indiana, you'll adapt just fine and you'll be okay. As long as you can deal with 4 months of cold temperatures and snow, then you'll be okay in Indiana. Now, if you're the type of person that can't deal with super cold temperatures, you can't deal with snow, then you might want to reconsider moving to Indiana, or for that matter, the Midwest. Or if you're the type of person that during the summer you don't really want to deal with a whole lot of humidity. Now, in my humble opinion, there are days here in Indiana where it gets pretty humid. But I would say for the most part, the humidity here is not as bad as other parts of the country, such as the South. So if you want to live in a climate to where you got low humidity, I would say you might want to check out maybe northern Minnesota or the Dakotas. In those parts of the Midwest, the humidity will be significantly lower compared to Indiana. Now, of course, you'll pay significantly more money for your housing in those areas, but if you're more concerned about the climate, then, you know, as far as the humidity goes, you'll be better off moving to northern Minnesota or the Dakotas if you're not wanting to deal with a whole lot of humidity. Or you prefer slightly cooler temps during the summer. You see, right now, I'm getting ready to, right now I'm in Lawrence, Indiana. I've done my video of Lawrence, Indiana, so go check that video out. I'm still on 67 South, Indiana Route 60, State Indiana Route 67, southbound. In a little bit here, I'm getting ready to go on the freeway because I'm headed down to Martinsville, Indiana to take care of some business. Well, I hope this video has helped some of you out in concerns to the climate in the state of Indiana. I don't know what else to say or what else to add to it. If anyone who is watching this video wants to add to it, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for your thumbs up, thanks for your comments, thank you for your support. And until the next time, I will see you. Everybody have a blessed one, and I will see you guys on the next video.